Hey everybody, me and Yvette here. Just a quick note to admit to you that we bit off a little bit more than we can chew. Like, as you know, we both have our full-time jobs and also a family and also a business to run. And also a podcast to give you all the information that we need. So we are going to, for the next few weeks, we will only release a podcast every other week just to get caught up with life. And then when we have all our ducks in a row and life is not that busy, maybe we'll speed it up again. Yvette, what do you think?
I think it's brilliant and giving everybody a little bit of a heads up there that yes, we took on a little bit more than we could do, but we want to rather do it thoroughly than just quickly rush something. So it gives you time for 2 weeks to listen to what we've had to say, give us any comments, feedback, and also follow up with us. So thanks for understanding, and we'd love to see you back soon.
And we would really love if you hit that subscribe button and give us a follow. Give us a message in the comments. Tell us what you think. Take care. Enjoy
Thank
this.
you.
Enjoy this podcast. Habits. We all have them. What is yours? Hi, Yvette. So today we're talking about habits. How habitual do you feel today?
I feel very habitual. Good question. It's such an interesting topic because we need to differentiate between good and bad habits because they don't always lead to a positive outcome. But I don't think we always realize which habits impact us in what kind of way. So we were talking about habits, and a lot of times people, when we deal with patients, will talk you through a situation where you and I realize it's literally only a habit. There's no other reason for it.
Absolutely. And so many times we ourselves sometimes have to look back and see at the habits that we're doing. And when we identify certain things, we think, oh, you know what? Maybe we should reevaluate what we're doing. But we all have them. Habits are part of human nature. Brushing your teeth. Hopefully that's a habit. I've encountered a few people in the pharmacy where I wonder if that is a habit or not. Because their breath is something to really write up in the books. But habits are such interesting things because it's always these things that we do and we don't even think about it. And if you think of one of the benefits of a habit is that it saves you mental energy. Now, we discussed that it can be good and bad.
It surely can. But if you resolved your life and you've learned certain habits from a very young age, then it becomes mindless. Now, I'm talking whether good or bad. But in the case of a good habit, if you've taught from a very young age to make your bed, tidy your room, then as you grow older, you do that without thinking. You get up and you get dressed and you've tidied your room because that's become a habit that you're not thinking of. What you said now about brushing your teeth, most of us don't have to set a timer on our phone to say, I need to go brush my teeth. It's a habit that we form. It can either be in the morning, in the evening, it can be 3 times a day. Now, if you do become the obsessive compulsive one that brush your teeth 5 times a day, I think that you need to relook at that habit because that's also not good. The same as what we say, there are good habits and bad habits. And certain times in life, I think we resolve back to habits learned, sometimes through either a good or a bad situation, but usually through bad situations, especially when it resolves around food.
Yeah, for sure. And especially if you've been listening to our podcast, you know food is definitely going to come out today. Habits around food. But I do also want to add something that I just read this morning was that habits actually comprise 40 to 43% of our daily activity. That's quite a bit
That is.
because we very quick to identify one habit that we have and say, oh, I'm going to take this example that everybody's probably thinking of, and that is smoking. You have a habit of smoking and you focus on that one thing. But think about it. That's one thing. And how many things do you do per day? And now think about 40% of everything you do is actually something that you do out of habit. That's quite a bit.
thinking at all. You know, a thought that came across my mind was, and I don't know if you can remember, but we just moved to America and we started working 12-hour shifts. That was a habit that our bodies had to learn.
Yes,
So arriving here and all of a sudden you get told you have a 12-hour shift. Because one thing I can really admire, the Americans work very long hours with very little breaks. And that was a habit that my physical body had to overcome. The first few days I thought, I can't do this. This is nuts. But then slowly but surely teaching your body, so this is what we're going to do now. This is the next step. And then ultimately, what you were saying, you do it without any thought, expenditure of no energy, and it becomes your new normal.
for sure. Because you, especially talking about that 12-hour shift, now if somebody schedules you for a shift, you assume it's 12 hours. And if they say, oh, no, it's only 8 hours, you say, oh, you mean I have a short day?
Interesting how the mind shifts when with regards to something that is normal and then it's abnormal. But the mental time that you spend on recultivating your body to adjust to those habits is energy. And as soon as you start getting used to that habit, there's no energy expenditure. Same with making your bed, brushing your teeth. When you're little and your mom says, go brush your teeth, you're like, oh, don't want to do that. Do you think about it in the same way? No. So there's many of these things that we do. And as soon as a change starts coming, all of a sudden we feel like it's depleting us of mental and physical energy. That's why habits can sometimes be such a hard thing to overcome.
For sure. If you think about it, when do you do a habit? I'm going to take the example of smoking again because I used to smoke for many years. And I remember there's certain triggers and certain environmental triggers that would trigger me to light up a cigarette. One of the triggers was eating. One of the triggers was waking up. How bad is that? When you wake up, I remember in the army, that was the first thing on my mind was waking up, getting out of bed and going outside and have a cigarette. And there's these triggers that is just part of life where we pair a habit with. And sometimes environment, like places you go. Like, for instance, I know specifically because I made a point of not eating anything made with flour. But if we go to Red Lobster and that freshly baked biscuits come out, that smell, you're gonna have to try one, even if it's just a bite. And again, that is a trigger, an environmental trigger for a habit to come out. So there's all these things that we do almost unconsciously just because it's part of our habit. And
You
like
know
you
what?
said, you save a lot of mental energy because if that cookie is there, you don't have to think about, this is what it's going to do to my body. And yes, that's a good idea to eat it. Because if you did go through that process, you probably would not do it.
I think it's
But
a
it's a habit.
dopamine overdrive that's saying, okay, I need it. I want it. I should have it. And funny enough that you mentioned that as a child, I really had a lot of strep throat, tonsillitis, and something that I grew up doing purely it was parents not knowing and it would soothe my throat was to eat ice cream because it was so nice and soothing on the sore throat. And over the years, I've recognized that if I do have a cold or a sore throat, that the first thing I think of is I got to have some ice cream. And it's interesting how your brain immediately takes you back to that. Doesn't mean it's a good habit, but where did it come from?
Yes.
And breaking that way of thinking, because obviously now you and I've both learned the sugar for the sore throat was not going to be very helpful.
No.
But
And
recognizing the triggers, I think, is really very important. And it's the same what you say with food at a restaurant with the bread basket. Oh my goodness. Any place where they put that fresh baked bread down, it is so hard to resist because they know this olfactory system is going to take you back to fresh bread and a lot of butter.
yes, and then by the time your main course come, you're full already
You
because you
don't want to eat.
already ate so much. They can just put one slither of meat on there and you say, I had such a great meal because you're full from all the bread that you ate. One other thing that I want to bring up, and that is the thing about emotional eating, especially and that is if there's any parents listening, I do want you to break the cycle right away if you fall into that trap. Because for some reason, we as modern parents think that if my child gets hurt, it's a good thing to offer them a treat because we're so sensitive to their crying that instead of comforting them with our love and affection, it's much easier to comfort them with a piece of candy.
And that evolves into becoming a kind of a reward system
Definitely.
because they grow up as an adult.
And now they want to do the same thing. And it's the sugar. And obviously, a child is crying and they are hurt and they don't feel well and they're upset. If you give them that candy, they're going to get the dopamine hit. It's their cocaine. They're
Hmm.
going to get it. And then, oh, okay, now they're fine. But in the long run, you teach them that every time they get hurt, that there's tears, they're emotionally not in a good place, you teach them that food and sugar is a thing that is going to take that feeling away.
That also resolves for, like you were saying, for being sad, but it
Hmm.
also becomes in a celebration type of way. I know us as Christians, we love to do all the potlucks and do all the
Yeah,
food and overeat and celebrate with food. But there's sometimes an abundance of that, and we don't typically need to always use food for either when we're sad or when we're happy.
definitely. And now that you mention that, it is so easy because that celebratory bowl of ice cream or whatever food item, we want to reward ourselves and that way soothe our minds. And it's not always such a healthy habit. I'm not saying never celebrate. Celebrate, but have it within means. And you don't have to celebrate daily. I don't know who has such great victories every single day that they have to eat a whole bowl of ice cream.
And then together with the habits of thinking about what you do with regards to eating or cleaning yourself or literally just your self-discipline around the house becomes another interesting topic that you and I always find people can very easily fall into. And that is lack of any spiritual habits because it's
Yes.
much easier. It's a very easy habit to learn to sit in front of the TV versus taking a book, reading your Bible, spending time with the Lord. That is a harder habit to learn because we have to give up on the easier habit. So you have to learn the replacement. And we were talking about it earlier. People spend thousands of dollars to go to weekend retreats and study materials and self-help guidebooks. But the one thing you need to do, even if you go and attend all of these, is you need to learn to apply those habits. So if you do not spend time on growing spiritually or learning more, or getting a new habit to every day, I'm going to read a little bit or read a book a month. That is a habit that is very lacking in today's society. Most people think when you finish school, books are packed away, never have to read again.
I remember when we finished high school, there was such a lot of people in our class who had burn parties because they burned all their books because they're so happy that they're done with high school now. And thinking about back on it, it's kind of stupid
Life only
because
started there.
yes, because if you think about the actions you're doing, you're destroying the things that actually can improve you. And we're so our human primal brain always want to revert to spending the least amount of energy, brain energy and physical energy. And we we've talked about it earlier about like going to the gym, having a habit of going to do daily exercise. The flip side of not doing it is also a habit.
True.
It's because it's much easier to either sleep in or sit in front of the television or doing anything else than to decide to break out that hour, 2 hours, whatever the case may be, to go and do some workout, whether it is at the gym or even just going for a walk. But and again, it's a habit to not do it, because we were talking a little bit about the science of a habit. Dr. Carolyn Leaf has this brilliant expose about the 63 days of a habit. She says it's 3 cycles of 21 days that it takes to build a new habit, but it takes the same amount of time to destroy an old habit. And my big question also always when it comes to habits is, which habits do you have that is not serving you anymore? So again, the example of smoking. Does smoking benefit you? Does it serve you? Or does it harm you? Go back, look at the other habits. Brushing your teeth. Does it serve you or does it harm you? It serves you, and believe me, if you brush your teeth, it serves other people too, especially the ones you have conversations with. So it's really sitting and evaluating and identifying those habits that you have. And then once you identify them, sit back and think, okay, let's see, brushing my teeth, serving me or not serving me? Eating cookies and milk in the morning as soon as I open my eyes, serving me or not serving me? And I think it's a really good place for everybody that listens to this to just go sit back and think about your habits. And you have to actually think about it, because remember, when you do them, you're not thinking, because your
Very
brain
true.
is conserving energy. Your brain does not want to think about doing or not doing. It's automatic. It's an automatic action.
You know, when
Remember
we
we
go ahead.
remember we talked about when Christmas in the pharmacy, when everybody brings you cookies and that cookie bowl is there and you just walk past it, a cookie, and you eat it. And after a while, at the end of the day, you find out, I did not only eat one cookie, I probably had about 10. It's a mindless habit. It's there. You walk past it without even thinking, without considering what it's going to do to you. It goes in your mouth and down the hole.
So, for the two of us that we really like to get people from pills to purpose, as you know, that's what our podcast is about. It also reminds me of patients that the habit of them to go to a doctor, get a prescription prescribed, pick up the medication, mindlessly taking it, never questioning this new habit that I'm learning, this new drug that I'm putting in, what is it doing? Because the energy expenditure to find out what is it for, what is it doing, what are the side effects, that would be something added to your day where you now need to learn something about your own health. And believe it or not, but your health being a priority is a habit that you need to learn. Otherwise, you won't work out. You won't care about what food you eat. You won't care what time you go to sleep, because sleep is another habit. You do get some people that sleep is not important until it is, and then they cannot sleep because now they've messed up everything. So the point I'm trying to make is, when it comes to your health and having a thought on the things you do on a daily basis, but it will also require energy from you to be asking questions. How can I change this? What can I do? But change is not easy. What you were saying there about the 63 days, it's not easy. The first 20 is really the hardest. From there, it's duplicating, duplicating, duplicating. But looking towards your own situation. And I find it interesting what you say, because, Johan, so many of us do things that we don't even realize we do. I know when you have children, they are very quick and easy to say, but you always leave the fridge door open. You always do this. And then you have to stop and think, I do? Because that habit is so mindless, you don't even think of it.
Absolutely. In a way, also, you just now broke open a big can of worms, because people get in such a habit of running to the doctor for anything and everything. In a way, I want to blame our system of medical insurance because we're so used to how the insurance will take care of it until till they don't. And that we've had a discussion over in one of our podcasts too. When it starts hurting your pocketbook, now all of a sudden you want to see, oh, but why is my doctor not going to be covered? Why is this not going to be covered? Why do I have to pay for it? And people are very quick to run to the doctor where it might just be a simple habit that you need to change in order to fix things. Now, we're not saying you should not go to the doctor. If you're sick, you should go to your doctor, but you don't have to run to him for everything. There's many things that I believe is an habitual action that can be changed, that is possible, and you don't have to do it on your own. There are people who are willing to help. But I also want to say, there's always a price to everything.
There is.
This, and I had this discussion with one of my kids. I said, how much do you want this? If you really want it, you'd be willing to pay the price. And some of these habits, we just love them so much we don't want to give them up. We know it's not good for us, but do you really mean I need to give up tacos? Or tortillas? Are you sure? And you've had those clients and those people that I also talk to, and they go, "But I'm Mexican."
Not
Yes,
going to
but
change.
your body is human.
That's the other habit, the big one I always love to talk about. And we often get that when we hear in our discussion of metabolic disease. But my mother was diabetic. My father was diabetic. My grandfather was diabetic. And Johan and I do not, I'm not talking about the 1% of people who have some other metabolic gene. Something happened in their life. Disregard those. We're talking to the masses. And the big thing there, the habits you learned with eating is something you learned from your family, something you learned the way you grew up, the way your grandparents ate, the way you ate at a family gathering. That is a habit that comes from generations without thinking. That is a habit that you have now cultivated and you have blamed genes for that. That is not true. And that can be changed. We've seen it over and over. And yes, the typical example is I'm Mexican. I really like to eat that food. Or I'm Italian. I have to eat all the pasta and do all those things. Well, then us South Africans really have a problem because we love to eat in general.
Yes.
So our pastime is rugby and food, So if there's no food, so we have to break that habit of thinking that this is because of my genes. It's not. It's a habit that you've been taught. It's become so ingrained in you. And again, takes no energy expenditure because that is what you always do. But you know that old saying about, if you do the same thing over and over and you expect different results,
Different results.
it's called
Yep.
insanity. You can't do that. So the only way you can break those are your habits. And the same thing when it comes to the psychological things. You cannot learn to have a better temperament or handle situations better or think about things in a different way if you do not take the time to read and learn and self-development. It doesn't happen with osmosis.
And one thing that I want to add about reading and self-developing, making yourself a better version of you, many people might say, "Oh, but that is selfish." No, you're not on this earth just for yourself. You might, if you do all these practices and make self-development a habit of taking 10 minutes a day and just spend that on yourself, you are going to become a better version for you and also everybody that you get in touch with. If you think about how to handle conflict, for instance, you're thinking about, okay, now I'm going to handle it better for myself. My blood pressure is not going to go through the roof and I don't want to have a headache for the next 2 weeks. But the person on the other side of that conflict, you're serving them too. You're actually providing something good for them. And we had this discussion right prior to starting this podcast about we're very much into the holistic health benefit. The thing about handling conflict better, do you think it's not going to affect your health too? Absolutely it is. Because once you get stressed out, you just think it's my mind, it's my head. I need to get this out of my head. You need to get your cortisol levels down because your cortisol and adrenaline levels now through the roof. Your sympathetic nervous system is fight or flight. I need to do something. Your body does not get into that place of rest, repair, and digest. So next thing is you have stomach issues. I probably ate something. You were stressed. You killed half of your gut bacteria while you were being stressed. So think about that. Those can be a healthy habit to do self-development, to take that 10 minutes and read something. I just subscribe to, I don't even know where I came across it. It's a Bible reading plan where you fill out a questionnaire and it brands you of a type of Bible figure, and then it designs a plan for you according to that. And for me, I signed up for a month because I think it is great. I know it's going to improve me. I know I'm going to do better not beating myself up or not beating other people up because I judge them. My Bible character is Paul. And the thing is, Paul's weakness is he judged other people according to his standards. And I know I do it. So I'm going to become a better version of me. My stress levels are going to go down. Everybody around me, stress levels is also going to go down. So I think that might be a good habit.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned Paul because I was just thinking about how Paul specifically says to renew your mind every day. So if we have to get physical food, why don't we get spiritual food every day? Because we are depleted. And he does say to renew your mind every day, to wash out the old, put in the new. And something that I've come across so much is people do not understand the word stress. A lot of people think stress is exactly what you said. There's a lot of pressure on my mind. But stress is handled by the body differently for each person in the way of, for some people, they won't be able to sleep. Others will have an upset stomach. We spoke about it a while ago when we spoke about the nervous stomach. The old people used to say, oh, you have a nervous tongue. But people don't realize that is the body's way of responding to stress. And as you mature and as you learn and as you renew your mind, you learn to reflect on some of the stress and deflect some of the stress. And God enabled us to be able to want us to renew our minds. He wanted us to have a life of hope. Because if you don't place new thoughts in and you don't renew your mind on a daily basis, you are literally going down in a very, very deep, dark tunnel. And what you and I also, we don't feel like a lot of people will say, oh, it's so new agey. No, it's not new agey. It depends on how you do it. If you think the strength comes from within, yes, then you definitely have a new age problem. We do not. We rely on a much higher strength. We rely on the one who came, who is the light for our lives. And if we can reflect on that every day and renew our minds, exactly what you said, we don't just become better for ourselves, but the people around us. And
Yes,
that's why ultimately the habits of, I think one of the best habits to have is to want to achieve something more every day,
absolutely.
to
I
be a
agree.
better version of yourself. That is a habit I think is essential. But so many people that I've reached, it's literally life has become so overwhelming. It's go home, get up, or go home, sit in front of the TV, have dinner, go to bed, go to work, go home. It's so redundant that they've lost complete purpose because taking on a challenge of a new habit is too much.
Yeah. And I feel also because we spoke about this, we're into, if you think about holistically, we talked about body, mind, and spirit. And a thought that came up about mental health is the fact that it's almost impossible to separate mental health from physical health. And I want to pull that through to spiritual health. It's also impossible to separate the spiritual health from your mental health, which is also connected to your physical health. So it's not just one thing. It's not just the medicine. It's not just what you eat. There's a lot of other factors. That is why in one of our programs that we offer, we have one full module that we focus only on mindfulness and your mental state. Because if you don't have that fixed or that solidified in your being, the rest of the program is going to be a total waste of your money.
And it all
You can follow, you do everything we tell you, but if your mind is not there, it's not going to happen for you.
And it's a very big problem we've got in society today is no identity. People do not know who they are. And loving yourself, caring for yourself, and knowing that who you are, that identity is so deeply rooted that for some it causes a lot of psychological issues. And that's why we are so much about the whole body, mind, and spirit. Because if you don't take care of the one, the others will lack.
Yep, the others will suffer. I always draw this analogy. Think about this. Just close your eyes and think about it. Getting out of bed early in the morning, like 4 or 5 a.m. It's dark in your room, and you try to make it to the restroom, and you stub your toe like hard against the corner of the cabinet. Is it just your toe that hurts, or does it affect your entire body? Because now all of a sudden you're kind of limping because you don't want to step on that toe. So your leg is activated. You have compensatory muscles in your back. You're kind of crooked now. There's all these things. And likewise, these bigger systems that we talked about, body, mind, and spirit, they're all connected. And think about it. Now you stubbed your toe. How is you mentally feeling?
Are you annoyed with yourself? How stupid could you be? How could you do
Absolutely.
that?
How is the rest of your day going to be? Because now you're annoyed with everybody else that comes across your path too. And yet the first thing, oh, did you know what I did this morning? Now
So
you're
your whole
spreading
day
the
is
love.
the whole day is spoiled just by that.
Everybody now has to be miserable with you because misery loves company.
Totally does. Quite a few of the habits that we have, and I also think about that, is anything that could have happened in your life, trauma, psychological, anything that could have impacted you, car accidents or being hurt or losing family members. Many of those things people disregard and don't realize that the habit you have of recovery, working through these things, getting to a better person, they play a very big role into who you are now. So it's really important when you look at how you've handled things in the past. I have a saying that I've said for many years, it really doesn't matter what happens to us in life, but how do you handle it? And that handling is another word for what is going to be the habit that's going to come from this issue.
Yes.
So being determined and prepared to have a positive, healthy change versus going back and falling into negative habits, that's where that fine line of distinction of habits grow.
I feel what you just mentioned is so important because there are things that we habitually do when we get into, let's say, a tough situation at work or conflict is one of the big ones. How you habitually deal with that, because I know people once if they let's say in a work situation they get found out they mess something up, then some people will go straight into defending themselves instead of owning up to it, and that is a habit. And now for that habit you have to go back in your past, see where it originated, because it might be something that happened to you as a child that you were too immature to handle the correct way, or you had somebody to tell you to handle it in a specific way, that you now adopted and you're doing it for the rest of your life. And that is just like a physical thing. What are those things that you do with your body? Those habits. Like if you stubbed your toe as a child and now your toe is broken and How were you comforted? Were you offered an ice cream, some candy? And is that now your source to deal with that problem? And you don't think about it because you've always done that. Yes, but my mom told me, if this happens, I should do this. And it's not serving you. There's so many facts and science out there about health and our human bodies that you can quickly realize which of these habits serve you and which don't. And if it doesn't serve you, it's time for that habit to go.
And a good point you bring up there, Johan, is with those habits, you then start developing a relationship towards food and your health. So mainly in your head, you will go back and say, well, this is just the way I am. This is my lot in life. But then we see in many instances when you and I speak to a patient with regards to their relationship with food, I know of the example of children who are always deprived of, say, for example, to buy a candy when you're at the supermarket. The children are not at the age where they understand that you might not have money to buy it. That's the one thing. The second thing is you don't need to get a candy every time you scream. So that reward system, that parent is slightly more advanced where that is. But sometimes children don't always comprehend it in that way. They look at it as I've been deprived. And as soon as they've become an adult, every single time they walk into a store or they go away, they will buy as much candy as they can, as they want, because there's a freedom. But you have to ask yourself, why do I have this habit of when I go into a supermarket, I always leave with a slab of chocolates or a packet of chips? What is the reasoning behind it? And that's a habit that you learn probably from a situation that you did not understand correctly. Because many times children will think, oh, their parents were just being mean, not
Yeah.
understanding what was the full situation, which was actually a benefit for you. But now you've taken that misunderstanding and you've made a habit of this is how I proceed every day. But unfortunately, that habit then will go to your children because they see that every time we go to the store, we get a candy or we get something to eat. It becomes normal. So what we previously said, go back to those instances of things that you mindlessly do. Put all the shopping on the counter and then you grab candy and there you go. No thought about that. So
No thought at all.
that's the thing we want you to look at and say, so do you blame your parent for teaching you the wrong behavior, or are you able to break that behavior?
Definitely. And if you think of, breaking a habit is not an easy thing to do. We never say it's easy, and we're definitely not psychologists to give you counseling and have you work through it. But we do have, I think one of the big things that we can offer is the support in taking your hand and walking you through it. But sometimes those bad habits, let's say it's eating a cookie. There's this bowl of cookies at your workplace, and every day you walk past it, you take a cookie. And now you have a medical issue or a health situation that you want to take care of, and you incorporate me and Yvette, and we tell you, well, that cookie, you're not allowed to eat it anymore. When you get to work, the first trigger in your mind is going to be, oh, I'm going to eat a cookie, because your brain does not want to incorporate enough energy to say, oh, that's not what we do anymore. And you only figure out that you took the cookie once it's in your mouth. And then you go, oh, damn, look what I did. Don't beat yourself up about it, but now think about it. That is actually such a good thing that happened to you, because now your mind actually got activated a little late, but it got activated in thinking, that was a failure, but it's progress. One of the classes me and Yvette do, that they said progress over perfection, and I'm such a big proponent of that. Think about the fact that your brain got activated in telling you, this is what you did, but you're not supposed to. That's a win.
Because
Take that win.
previously you didn't have that.
Yes.
So that's a very good example. And something that I liked what you said earlier. And for me being a wife, I can lay this example to Johan. So you have a very loving wife. She takes care of you. You get home. There's a plate of food in front of you. For years and years and years, Johan, you found that plate of food. What did you do?
I ate every morsel on it.
Did you think about what you were eating?
Nope.
You didn't prepare it. You didn't make it. You got home. Food was ready. Then all of a sudden, something happens and you're not feeling so good. You get up in the morning and you can't tie your shoelaces. The brain fog is getting to you. Then you get home and you have that same plate of food because now you realize something has to change. What did you do then?
Well, I had to do research to get away from the way I felt because that was just absolutely miserable. I weighed 250 pounds, got winded by tying my shoelaces, could not think straight. I had social phobia like crazy. I did not want to be among people. And I had to do research. And, you think, okay, maybe I should exercise. Maybe you should do this instead of getting to the root cause, which was the thing that I put in my mouth. And started changing slowly because my mom used to say Rome wasn't built in one day. But slow baby steps, we got to a point where we are right now. And it felt like I have a brand new lease on life because of all the things that I've changed. And many people, it's available to everyone.
So that plate of food for you, now there's no mindless eating.
No.
There's thoughtful. Is this going to feed my body or am I having this just as a reward? Am I
Yeah.
just filling myself up? So again, I love the analogy that we have with a Ferrari, your nice expensive Bugatti or Rolls Royce. Are you going to put the cheap gas in there or are you going to put the expensive gas?
Yes.
And that's a habit. Believe it or not, that's a habit. And
Yep.
that's a choice.
Yeah. Are you eating to reward yourself or are you eating to feed and heal your body? And feeding is almost a wrong word because we so associate feeding with getting rid of hunger.
Mm-hmm.
Hunger is a good signal that your body has to tell you it needs building blocks or it needs fuel. And if the food on your plate is not building blocks or fuel, then don't eat it. Because if it's not building blocks or fuel, it is a dopamine hit.
We were
That's it.
asked a very good question recently by one of our clients that said, but what if I'm craving chocolate cake? Or what am I if I'm craving something sweet? And our standard answer is if you are craving things like that, your body is not healthy. Because you shouldn't be craving anything. You should be nutritionally fed. Your cells should function at its optimal purpose. You should have learned the habits to fuel, feed, and renew, not
Yes.
purely entertain, fun, and reward. Those are habits you have to relearn and retrain your brain because there's so much marketing out there. There's so much stuff we've learned, that is absolutely contradictory to what is healthy, but we still go back in our minds and replay that habit. But surely that can't be healthy. Yes, it is. So it's a retraining of the brain, renewing your mind, learning new things. Like I will always say, habits aren't easy to break, but if you are willing to have a reward and a system where you can see excellent results for your body, your mind, and your spirit, then start new habits, even if it's one a
Yes.
day.
Yeah, absolutely. And if it's that new habit, make sure, I always say, start with one thing. Because there's many people, especially beginning of the year, who have this New Year's resolution. They're going to eat healthy, they're going to exercise every day, and they're going to do X, Y, and Z.
Read a book a week, like
Yeah,
all
read a
this
book a week.
massive. How
People
long does it last?
yeah, I've heard a saying, I can't remember who said it, that people underestimate what they can do in 5 years. And they overestimate what they can do in 1 week.
True.
And it's not that thing that you're going to accomplish in a week. If you all those things, start with one. If it's exercise, let it be exercise. If it's eating right, let it be eating right. But start with one thing. And when it comes to eating right, if you ask me and Yvette, because that's something we focus on a lot, um, even that can be multifaceted. Some people need to start by just quitting soda. Some people have quit soda, but now they have to stop eating all the starches, all the breads and the pastas. So there's a lot of facets. But start with one thing. Start with one thing, perfect it, and then move on to the next one. Eventually, you will get there. Yeah, don't underestimate what you can do in 5 years, and definitely don't ever overestimate what you think you're going to be able to accomplish in 1 week, because it's not going to happen.
And the one thing that I also feel that's important when it comes to learning those habits is to plan. For example, if you decide, like Johan was saying, don't drink the sodas, when you go to the supermarket, don't buy them.
Don't even go down the aisle.
So
You've
you
got nothing to lose there.
have to learn new habits. The habit of shopping that Johan and I teach people is you go on the outsides of the store, nothing in the inside. You go everywhere where there's the fresh meats, the fresh cheeses, the milks, the creams. You go all on the outside. Don't go on the inside. The inside's where the processed stuff is. So that's a habit to learn. All of a sudden, you're not walking down the same aisle. I remember a couple of weeks ago, we were at a supermarket and we had to buy something. One of our kids wanted to do something bake something for work. And Tony and I literally could not find the aisle in the baking because we never go down that aisle. And we were both, where will it be? We never go down here. And then also being absolutely astounded at a whole aisle of cereal. It's grown and grown and grown. So bypass that. You don't need that. But it's a habit you have to learn, because if the temptation is there and you haven't planned correctly yet, you might just fall back into those. So for any kind of habit, it's the same as going to the gym. If you want to start going to the gym, get yourself a pair of sneakers. It doesn't help you say, I'm going to go work out, but you haven't got sneakers. So don't set yourself up for failure and then use that as a, blaming tool. But put one goal you want to achieve, work on that habit, plan for it, and then check back in a couple of weeks with yourself and go, man, and this goes back to your cookie story on. I only ate 3 cookies this week at work, where I probably would have had 3 a
Yep.
day or 6 a day. So don't beat yourself up. It's a slow step in the right direction, as long as you don't lose sight of what habit it is you want to create and which one you want to start.
Yes. And me and Yvette, we're very much focused on metabolic health. And so if you think there's something that we can help you with, our links are in the show notes. Get on our calendar. And because it might be the habits that got you where you're at. So let's see if we can change that and take your hand and walk you through a process to get you in a better place, body, spirit, and mind.
We would love to help you. It really is so rewarding for Johan and myself to see how people take a hold of their lives again in all shapes, body, mind, and spirit, and see results by making small changes on a daily basis, which eventually results in a whole better new you. So please reach out to us. There are places where we can help. Set an appointment with us. We can speak to you to find out if this is something that we can assist you with. But we would really love to be there for you.
Yes, 100%. All right, everybody. I think that's it for today. So we'll catch you on the next one. And by the way, if you like our podcast, please subscribe, hit that the bell button so we can always alert you when we have a new podcast that's airing. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Views and opinions expressed on this podcast are our own and are intended for educational and informational purpose only. This podcast does not provide medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. The information shared should not be used as a substitute for professional medical advice from your personal health care provider. Always consult your physician, pharmacist, or qualified health professional before making any changes to medications, supplements, or health regimens. We are also promoters of Neolife nutritionals, beauty, and household products, and this stems from our knowledge of their purity and the company's reputation to provide products of outstanding quality. While we may discuss our experiences in the retail pharmacy setting and share insights into functional medicine, our conversations reflect our professional perspectives and personal opinions, and not those of our employers, affiliated organizations, or licensing boards. By listening to From Pills to Purpose podcast, you acknowledge that you are responsible for your own health decisions and agree that the host and guests are not liable for any outcomes resulting from the use of the information discussed in this podcast.